Nicola, it's really nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
So much. As I drove over here today, I was kind of thinking to myself that from doing a bit of research on you, I realised you grew up on a farm and I grew up on a farm. And I kind of put it together that, you know, in your day-to-day you fling a hammer and in my day-to-day I swing a hammer. Both with precision and care, obviously.
Of course, yes.
Can I ask you, when did you first, start hammer throwing? How did you get introduced to it? Were your parents, your mum or dad, did they do it, or where did it originate?
Yes, I guess like athletics, originated from my mom. She would have done it when she was younger. So then, like when myself and my two sisters got a bit older, we kind of started. So I think I was 9 when I first started, but it was always kind of running, and I did everything. Like I did the cross country, the long jump, the shot, like the sprints. I did it all. But it was kind of when I was 12 then I first tried the hammer. Just at the local athletics club camp, you get to try a bit of everything. So we tried a hammer. I had my lovely plastic pink hammer. I think it was like a kg or something. And we were throwing it on the pitch, and I just thought it was different, something fun. And I was actually kind of after that decided to enter my first kind of county championships, and I was at my neighbour's daughter's communion kind of joking about how I was going trying this new thing, and he kind of disappeared, and a few minutes later he came in with this massive hammer, and turns out he actually used to throw, which I'd never known before. So he said, look, if it was something I thought I'd like, he'd give me a hand. So he did for a few years, and then kind of eventually started to lean a bit more towards the hammer and started dropping off all the other sports I was doing. And I think kind of when I was around 16 is when I was kind of like 15, 16, I was like, right, this is a sport for me. And then I got my current coach, Killian, and my gym coach, Roland, on board then, kind of started to take it seriously, I guess, and kind of locked in as the one I wanted to focus on.
Wow. And you say you played other sports, because just per chance at the moment I read a book called Range. And it's really interesting because it talks about these people who've reached the peak of their powers at various sports. But almost every time they played loads of sports. Either they decided themselves or were encouraged to. So what other sports did you play before?
Yeah.
What didn't you play? Maybe
what didn't I say? Yeah, it might be quicker. Yeah, I did everything, obviously. Did swimming lessons, did dancing, horse riding. I have 2 ponies at home still. They're happily retired now. But did camogie. I did a bit of football in school. Did the running side of athletics. Like I did kind of basically everything. Gave it all a go. I did gymnastics at some stage for a year in bandit when I was younger as well. So kind of just tried everything, and then kind of gradually kind of gravitated towards the hammer.
There could be a chapter for you in this book, because it's exactly what they say. And you kind of people specialise kind of relatively late, because you say in some sports you kind of almost can't pick someone out. Like before the age of 16, they'll say rugby, you can't pick out someone because there's so much going on, growth and various things. As part of learning more about you, I believe I know the last year was very successful for you. Like looking back on the last year, is there anything for you that stands out that changed, or you changed, or was it just that progression of getting stronger and better?
Yeah, I think definitely that progression that kind of just every year, all the work kind of builds up on top of each other. And I was quite lucky that I got a good kind of winter training in without too many injuries and stuff. So that kind of block of training, I think definitely helped me kind of pushing on into the summer. And I think just even my setup, I'm up in UCD in college there, and I'm very lucky I'm on scholarship up there, so they're very accommodating with me. Like if I'm away on camp or away for competition and things, moving my exams and stuff, just making sure I can get the training done the best I can, and even being over in like Sport Ireland and things like the sport with physio and stuff like that, just to make sure that any small niggle stays a small niggle and goes away and you can get that block of training in. And I think last year, I guess too, I'm that bit older as well, and I kind of have that bit more of a focus, I guess, on the things outside of training too, like all the recovery and making sure you're fueling properly. And I guess as I'm getting older, I'm realising the importance of that as well. And I think just even having competed at the Olympics the year before and stuff, it made me that bit hungrier, and kind of the motivation was there as well. So it's kind of just, I think, a load of different things adding up.
So your circle and cage you've won on the farm at home, is it?
Yeah.
And is that where you do most of your throwing? Well, apart from UCD, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So when I'm in Dublin, I'll train up in UCD. They have a track there and a cage there. But then when I'm at home, both my coaches are based in Cork, so I'm home basically every weekend. And I do my throwing down in that cage that they built for me. We built it back in 2019. So I was doing my junior cert, and was just kind of, there wasn't enough hours in the day to get to training from school because it was taking time to cross the town. And then the cage was a little bit run down, so my hammers were getting stuck. And then my dad would be left coming in with a ladder, or like we'd have to go to a house up the road and be like, can we have a ladder? Like the hammer's stuck in the cage. And it was just, my two sisters were doing their homework in the car at the time. So they were like, okay, please, can we go home? And mom was then with me, giving me a hand. And it was just taking so much time. So mom kind of printed out the plans and kind of cornered my dad and was like, well, do you think this is possible? And then, yeah, that's been my main kind of, if I'm training at home, that's where I'm training. So most of my throwing sessions are done there, which is so handy for me because once I'm home, I guess I do so much driving up and down the road to and from Dublin. Once I'm home, I don't have to leave home, which is really handy.
And no errant throws going into sheds or hitting farm animals or
No.
casualties. Because as a kid, I was just worried about sticking a needles football through a window, but you're going to do more damage with a 4-kilogram cannonball.
Yeah, no, thank God the field is away from all the sheds and away from all the animals. So I haven't hit anything yet. I've made the lawn. It's gone over the trees into the garden a few times accidentally. So I'm sure they're not too happy with that. But usually the field is big enough that I should be safe enough.
Fair enough. Do you mind telling me about your Olympic experience? How was that? It must have been amazing.
Yeah, it was. It was such a cool experience. I guess for me, I was only 20 at the time. So I was really young. Like as a hammer thrower, you typically you progress with age. So like mid to late 20s, early 30s would kind of be essentially a lot of the people's kind of peak years. So I was the youngest in the hammer out at the Olympics. So it was kind of, I think, nice for me to be able to go out there with that little bit less pressure, because for me, I was like chasing qualification the whole time. So it was kind of only towards the end of the summer that I knew, okay, this is like definitely a possibility now. And I'm kind of trying to qualify for the Olympics, like you have to stay within like a certain ranking and stuff. So you're trying to stay in there and you're constantly watching that, which is really stressful when you're cutting it fine. But definitely just getting out there and being young, having that kind of less pressure to kind of go out and experience it all. And like, I am like really competitive. So I had my own goals going out there. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how I wanted to perform. But like, it definitely was like, just even being amongst like all the other Irish athletes, like usually when I'm traveling and stuff, it's to like European Championships, World Championships and stuff, it's all athletics. But with the Olympics then it's every sport. So you're getting to know like all the, like there's every country, every sport. So it's like the Olympic Village is a complete maze. Like it's absolutely massive. So I think just having that experience and being able to kind of get to know all the other athletes, like all the other Irish athletes in the other sports, and even just from athletics too, like being young, the whole team is so nice and they'll all like be chatting to you and like giving you advice. And you kind of think, kind of for me, like watching even the other girls that I'm competing against, like I'm constantly wanting to learn and improve myself. So like even in like the call room and stuff like that, or during like the trainings and stuff, you're kind of watching the other girls saying, well, what are you doing? Maybe that's something I could try next year. Or just kind of learning all these little things, like I guess being able to kind of soak up the experience while also being like really competitive. I think it kind of was nice for me just to have, and then definitely gave me that kind of a push on to want to like definitely like do it again and want to qualify for more championships, and kind of made me like, I was so hungry to go straight back training. And I think even with that, like having competed at like, I guess like an Olympic Games like that, it brings on like so many more opportunities that help with training. So like this, the Mater Private sponsorship and things like that came on, which helps with like the financial stuff with training and training camps. And it kind of just kind of, I don't know, I think it brought on a lot of different opportunities for me.
Wow, no, that sounds amazing. Maybe was it also really nice to feel part of a team? Because it's fair to say that when you're traveling, say, to non-Olympic events or other events, is it always with a big group, or are there times when you're just with, a niche kind of, group of athletes? I guess what I'm saying is that when you're at the Olympics, did you just feel part of something bigger?
Yeah, 100%. Like at the Olympics, I guess it being Paris too, even the support from the Irish that travelled out to it was insane. Like looking around the stadium, like the stadium was massive, but like there's Irish flags everywhere. And I think, yeah, being a part of that team, like when we're travelling to like competitions, like it'll be all athletics, so there'll usually be a nice sized team. There's some smaller than others. And obviously all of my training's kind of done on my own. So it is kind of nice to be a part of that team and just to get to know other people, because like hopefully all going well, like I'll be traveling with them again and going to competitions with them again. You just kind of make like a lot of really good, like great friends from sport as well, because you're all kind of like-minded people and you're all doing pretty similar things.
I was going to ask you that, when you're in the arena like that and all of you are performing at an incredible level, and some of the best of what you do in the world, there must be a certain kinship there as well. Like when you were there, was it all business, or was there time to relax? Was time to get to know some of the other Irish athletes, time to just relax and be distracted? Or
yeah, exactly. Like before the Olympics, we went on camp first down in a different part of France. So that was kind of just the athletics people. So it was kind of nice just to, I travelled with a lot of them before to European Championships, but I wouldn't have known them that well. I was a little bit younger than most of them. So it was kind of nice just to get to know people. Like when you're training, you're focused and you're taking it all seriously. But then like once you're done your session, you'd go for coffee or just lounge around and have a chat. And like you can learn so much even like things outside of sport and different bits of advice that people are able to give you. And I think I really enjoyed that part of it as well, because you're getting to know people and then you're kind of learning about your sport, but also about just life things as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and shared experiences, and that it will be common experiences regardless of which their specialty is or your specialty is. Like so far, and you're young and you're so early in your career, but have you had any injuries to date that have held you back for any meaningful amount of time?
Yeah, I actually have. I'm actually just coming off an injury spell at the moment. It's been kind of a rough kind of 2 months of different things, which is quite frustrating. But I guess it is kind of, for me, my kind of main competitions will be August time anyway. So it's the better time of year for it to happen. So kind of running into the Christmas and kind of coming out a bit after it, there was a few things that were kind of holding me back, which was quite frustrating. I wasn't able to throw for like 5 weeks, which isn't crazy long, but like just all these little things adding up. And then I think even for me, I'm kind of more accepting of that now and like working my way back and working with everyone around me to make sure I can still train, and that, I couldn't throw properly there for a while, but I was doing one-handed throws. So typically you throw with two hands, so I was doing one. And I think even that I learned back in 2022, I dislocated and fractured my elbow when I was throwing. So that was kind of my first big injury. And I was actually abroad at a competition at the time, so not the best time for it to happen. But I think even just having had that experience when I was young as well, it kind of makes you kind of not panic as much. You're like, okay, look, something like this has happened before. Obviously, a broken bone is a bit more of an issue. I couldn't throw for 3 months that time. It was a bit more of a serious thing. But I think having gone through an injury and been like, okay, I was able to build back up, it kind of stops you panicking just a tiny bit.
No, of course, and because that's a huge challenge, obviously, because you're so dependent on your physical health, and it's such a technical thing you do. Like in those circumstances, is it typical that you would say cross train? Would you even do something very different just to keep things taking over, keep your cardiovascular fitness going, or do you tend not to do that in case? You do it a different way, because I remember reading an interview with Michael Phelps, and at one point his coach almost felt bad for him because he thought, oh, he's just in the pool, up and down, up and down, down. So he said, Michael, let's get you running. And then when he started to run, he kept going over his ankles, and he realised he's more of a water-based mammal. Maybe he's not meant to be on land, but that's not you. But I just wonder, I guess, again, it's balance again, isn't it? That you've got to be careful to protect the area that's injured and allow it to recover. But in general, you'll just kind of rest, really, will you? Or will you, as you say, modify and maybe throw with one hand instead of two?
Yes, I modify everything like that. Like I'm doing like my cardio-based sessions would be done on a bike, because if I were to run, I'm risking injuring like a foot or a calf or something, which running isn't like relative to my sport. I do sprinting, but at the moment I can't do that, so I'm doing them on the bike. So there's that bit of like a crossover that you can kind of change things around. And like even when I have been injured, like I was throwing with one hand and then doing a load of drills. Like it is such a technical thing, and like the footwork's really, really important. So it kind of gives you that opportunity to focus in on that. So instead of throwing the actual full throw, you're still doing the throw just minus a hammer or just with one hand, and you're modifying things. And a lot of my work would be done in the gym as well, so it's the same there. Like there's one or two things I couldn't do, but I could still do everything else. So you're still pushing on all the time and like finding different ways of doing things just to make sure that you're able to kind of keep building that base.
Your nutrition, is that always on your mind? Are you very disciplined about that? Is it hard to be disciplined at all times about it?
It's definitely something I think about. Like I do like speak to nutritionists and things to make sure that I'm hitting. I guess for me, because I'm training so often, what I struggle with the most is actually eating enough. Because there's like, when you're training at like such an intense level, it's really, really difficult to like eat as much as you need. Like the amount of calories I'd have to eat in a day is crazy. And like, I guess there comes a point then where you're just full, like you're just not hungry for anymore. So trying to find like strategic ways of getting them in and stuff like that is definitely what I'm working on, especially when I'm full-time in college as well. So like you're burning those extra calories as well, just doing college work, and I'm on placement, so I'm teaching. So there's like all of that on top of the training as well. So trying to kind of make sure you're getting enough, like I'll always be strict on getting enough protein, carbohydrates and stuff. Like obviously if I'm going out for dinner and I want to get a dessert or something, that's fine too. But making sure that I'm hitting all of the other goals first would be a priority, yeah.
Interesting, because there's a documentary I watched one time. I recommend it's really good, about Eddie Hall, strongman. And they asked him what was the hardest part of his training, and you think it was farmers carries or atlas balls, and it was eating. He said he just got really sick of eating because, like you say, he had to consume so much to feed the muscle, because he had a huge amount of muscle on it, more than was normal for his frame, when he had to feed it. And then he also had to wear a sleep apnea device at night because he had so much going on. So it was interesting. It was very non-glamorous, and but I'd say eating was really the tricky part for him, you know. When it comes to nutrition, like in terms of what I do, obviously look after bones, fix bones and replace joints when they're worn out. When it comes to your bone health, is that on your mind? Is that something your nutritionist talks about? Do they, you know, are you supplementing with calcium and vitamin D and things like that?
Yeah, exactly. I think being from Ireland, vitamin D is kind of lacking. So I would take vitamin D. I take different supplements, and like obviously I'm from a dairy farm, so would always be having the calcium in there in the form of milk, yogurt, cheese. Like it's always really important. And I think a lot of things like that would have quite a high protein content as well, which kind of helps in the recovery. Like you're having a recovery shake, always put milk in it or some stuff, like, you know, something like that, to have that, like you're getting the calcium in there, but you're also getting your recovery for your protein and everything like that as well. So kind of interlinks.
It sounds like you're on top of it. And of course, because you're from dairy farm, you're probably going to, you know, more likely overload with calcium. If anything, like me and my siblings when we were young. It's so true that from a young age, whether you're male or female, you know, our peak bone density is at 25, which sounds very grim, but it's a slow decline. But for that reason, when I worked in New York for a number of years, the guy I worked with, he would advocate that all guys and girls from the age of 25 would take calcium and vitamin D no matter what they did. And actually around that time, you hit on it right away there about vitamin D, because that shiny orb in the sky is not always present. We don't often see it. We are often low in vitamin D. And when I was there was some big studies among NFL athletes, you know, these really, really fit guys. And they showed that lots of them were really, really low in vitamin D, and it hadn't been known, you know. And so there was always a question, did that leave them a little bit vulnerable to injury? And maybe it did, you know. I suppose the standout case I saw wasn't an athlete, but it was a radiologist who would spend all of her days, every day in a dark room, reading MRIs and CTs and so on. And she kept getting stress fractures in her feet, and that was it. She just was, her vitamin D level was so low. So even if she took lots of calcium, she couldn't absorb it appropriately, so she wasn't getting that benefit, you know. You have such a great support team around you. You're kind of covering all the angles in terms of nutrition. You know, you're considering your bone health, as we spoke about a second ago. You've, you know, got the mental health side of things as well. I think really, obviously, very stoic. You're very determined. You're very strong physically and mentally. And it sounds like you pay a lot of attention to rest as well, because now more than ever, there's so much science on sleep. In fact, in many ways, these days, it kind of feels like with the ability to harness and process so much data, it's kind of like a lot of things we always knew, or our mammies would tell us, our dads would tell us, are true, you know, like things like, you know, an hour before midnight is worth two after, science says it is, you know. So all these simple things that, you know, we felt rule of thumbs and so on, now we can say actually there is a lot of, you know, a lot of evidence to show it's very, very true. There's a guy out there called Matthew Walker. He's a sleep expert, and he was a medical student. And after one of his neuroscience lectures, his lecturer came to him and he said, "You know what? I don't think you should be a medic." And he went, "Oh, why?" I said, I'm good enough. And he said, No. He said, "You're just different." He says, "You ask questions because you want to know the answer, whereas the rest of them are asking questions because they want to know if it's on the quiz, so on the exam." And he said, "I think you actually truly are a real scientist." And so he directed him into hypnosis, and then from there he directed him into sleep studies. And he devoted the rest of his life, and he's in his 50s, he's young, but to sleep. And it's all that type of stuff he talks about, you know, that you can't bank sleep. It doesn't work. Like sleep doesn't do a tot up at the end of the week and say, well, you know, Nicola's had 2 there, 4 there, 5 there, average is 7, it's good. You know, it just doesn't work that way. So, you know, you get up the same time, but you go to bed earlier if you want to catch up. And, you know, sleeping in just generally doesn't work. So it's all these things. And I think you obviously have such a command of those, because proof is in the pudding in terms of the year you've just had and the prospects ahead of you, you know.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that I'm trying to focus on more, because I think recovery, like that you're saying, and sleep and everything is so important. And sometimes you can kind of get so preoccupied, well, I must get the session done. I think for me, learning when my body's had enough, and that actually doing this one extra thing is not going to help me. I'd be better off resting. I'd be better off sleeping and letting my body recover, I guess. And kind of taking that as a benefit.
Because I guess where you are, it's, you know, you'll be able to allocate the time to the training. So it's just almost trying to rein yourself in a bit, where, you know, in my line of work, I'm trying to find that time in the day to do a bit of training, you know. And I've realised the sweet spot for me is get up at 5:30, get to a High gym at 6, do 40 minutes and you know, but it's just trying to find that window, and then when you get into a routine, because I suppose like all of these things, it's consistency, and you just are incredibly consistent, obviously, in what you do, you know. And aside, my 10-year-old was watching you last night. She was watching the video. Oh, she was like noticing everything. She said, I think she said you did an Olympic tattoo. She thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Like, she's naturally really, really strong little girl. She just is. But she was like, it was just lovely. My wife and they were sitting in the sofa, they were watching you and your coach and going through stuff, and it was so funny. Like her eyes were just like on stock. She was like, she just flings it. And how does she know when she's gonna release it? And how come she doesn't hit the cage? And I was like, she's pretty good. She's getting the hang of it, you know.
Still hit the cage sometimes. Still hit the cage sometimes. I think it's, a lot of people would ask me that, like, how do you know when to let go? And I'm like, it's just kind of instinct, I think, from years of training. Like, I don't know, I don't really think about it. It just kind of happens.
They counted last night, and maybe it's always the way, but they said you did 7 revolutions, and it was on the 7th that you released. Maybe they're wrong. They were trying to count you. They say 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're like, 7 is a lucky number, you know. Yeah,
I do like typically like I'd swing it forward back, then I do 2 swings and 4 turns, and then let it go. Which would be kind of the typical 3-4 would be kind of what of the like actual turns. Then before that, you'll do your swings. So some will do 2, some will do 3, which would add it up, I guess, to the 7. But yeah, no, I think it is something that takes practice over time. But I think a lot of that as well is like the throwing it into the cage. Obviously, that's a foul. And for me, like in qualifying for like in major championships, you get 3 throws and that's it. So like even that, the likes of Paris, like you get 3 throws. I threw my first one into the cage. So like straight away you're panicking. You're like, oh God, like now I've only 2 more left. And for me, right before Paris, my training had been going awful. I think I don't even know why. It just wasn't like, it felt good, but the distance just wasn't there. So it was kind of that panic moment where you're like, oh God, like what if I do this again? And then you've only 1 throw left. And I think that's kind of the nice thing about the hammer as well, which I always say to kind of all the young girls and stuff that I be chatting to is like, it has so many different elements to it. Like it's so technical, like you're never going to be perfect. There's always something to work on, which I really enjoy. And then I'm in the gym a lot, so you're constantly building strength. I get to do sprints and speed work and stuff like that. So I'm still getting to run, and you kind of get to incorporate like all of these different things. And then like with that as well, there is that kind of, it's quite like a pressured environment. Like you only have those 3 throws in qualifying. So there's like that buzz of adrenaline, like when you get it right, then in those 3 throws and the excitement of like, for a field event, like for me, even this year at World Championships, you get 3 throws in qualifying. There's a qualifying group A, qualifying group B. So they split you in half and you get 3 throws each. So I was in group A. So I did my 3 throws. I was 6th in my pool, top 12 qualify for a final, but I had to sit for an hour and a half in the stand and watch qualifying group B to see would I be 12th, 13th, 14th, like would I make it, would I not? And I ended up making it, but like even just that kind of the like stress and the like scared kind of feeling, but also the excitement of like watching that group B, like I'm sat there in the stands, I was with my coach and we were just watching like every time the hammer would land, my eyes would be like glued at where is it, where's that landing, is it farther, is it not? I think there's like so much of that kind of excitement that a lot of people like wouldn't even think about that goes on behind the scenes, which I really enjoy about it as well.
Well, listen, I could genuinely talk with you all day long. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Lovely to meet you.
No, really nice to meet you.